Hi, and welcome to the Men on the Path to Love podcast, the Appreciation episode. I'm Bill Simpson, your host. I coach men who are struggling in relationship, how to communicate effectively, build trust, and deepen intimacy so that they can be the best version of themselves in relationship and live the life they love. Today, I'll be talking about the power of appreciation in relationship and how you and your spouse or partner can connect on a deeper level and bring more intimacy, peace, joy, and love into your lives. So I learned about appreciations a long time ago from my therapist at the time. She was saying that the act of sincerely appreciating someone or something is really good for us. I found out that there's actually research from the HeartMath Institute that backs this up. Yeah, they say that the feeling of appreciation is one of the most concrete and easiest positive emotions for people to self-generate and actually sustain for a pretty long period of time. And really, most of us can find something to genuinely appreciate, right? That you can breathe, that you have shoes on your feet, clothes on your body, a roof over your head, acts of kindness from others, and so on. Well, the HeartMath Institute says by simply recalling a time when you felt sincere appreciation and then recreating that feeling, you can increase your heart rhythm coherence, which is a balance or smoothness in the heart rhythms. And this will help you reduce emotional stress and improve your overall health. How about that? So, as corny as it may sound, my wife and I actually put in our wedding vows that we say at least 3 appreciations each night before we go to sleep. For the times when we're apart, we'll still either call or text each other our appreciations. And on the few occasions when we're really tired, we'll say something like, I appreciate all the things you do times 3. We really do take this to heart, and I'm certain that this has played a big part in the longevity of our relationship. If you think about it, saying appreciations is really a win-win process. I already mentioned how research shows that it's good for us to give appreciations, and it's also great to receive appreciations, right? My wife and I like to say ours before we go to sleep because it helps us go to sleep with positive thoughts and a feeling of connection. And I'm sure you've heard the old adage about not going to bed angry. Well, saying appreciations can help you see beyond your immediate feelings of anger and find the high road, going for the goal of behaving in a way that's best for the relationship in the long run. Now, part of this is being able to pause and open up to the difficult thoughts or feelings you're having, accepting them, and then acting according to what matters to you, what's important to you. In other words, your values. Making your relationship and the longevity of your relationship of value and act accordingly. Giving appreciation is a great reinforcement of that value. I shared this idea of appreciations with my client Robert, not his real name, who had been struggling for some time in his relationship. He pretty much scoffed and was all cynical and whatnot, saying, yeah, right, like that's going to make a difference. Well, I asked him to humble me and just consider it. So Robert went home to his partner Pat, not his real name, and told him about the appreciations idea. And he said that Pat laughed out loud, and then they both got to laughing hysterically. Tears were pouring down their faces from laughing so hard. And then Pat got quiet, and his tears were no longer from laughing. He was actually crying. And when Robert asked him what was wrong, Pat said that he hadn't felt appreciated for a long time, and that was a part of his struggle and why he had been so irritable lately. Well, Robert couldn't believe it. He had no idea Pat felt that way. He immediately started telling Pat all the things he appreciated him for. And Pat cried even harder because he finally got what he had been starving for, appreciation. Pat then returned his appreciations back to Robert. it worked. There's a quote from American physician, philosopher, poet, seer, and author Debsys Merjan that says, "The mind is like a flower. It does not bloom without the lights of appreciation, encouragement, and love." Well, Pat was so starved for the light of appreciation that he was suffering, and so was his relationship. Once Robert became aware of this and made himself vulnerable and told Pat how much he appreciated him, it really opened Pat's heart and the floodgates of tears as well. You know, when we truly feel validated and appreciated, it can touch our vulnerable place and open us up to feel deeply. And oftentimes when we've been in a relationship for a while, we can get so caught up in our cynicism and really lose touch with our vulnerability, our higher self, our soul. Our fragile ego takes over and we stuff our vulnerability so as not to take the risk to be real with our true self, to make ourselves vulnerable to the ones we love. I hope you can see that in this case, Pat allowed himself to be vulnerable, and then Robert became vulnerable and gave Pat the gift of appreciation. And in return, Pat gave Robert the gift as well. That is the power of appreciation. That is the power of being vulnerable. When I think of vulnerability, I go back to that guy I saw, this macho-looking guy wearing a t-shirt that says, "Vulnerability is the new sexy." Well, I know that's right. I'm happy to say that Robert and Pat decided to take on the ritual of appreciations and are doing much better in their relationship. And they still laugh hysterically at times when sharing appreciations, and that's a beautiful thing. Well, that'll do it for this episode of the Men on the Path to Love podcast, the appreciation episode. I'm Bill Simpson, your host. I appreciate you for listening and taking the time to learn and grow to be a better you in relationship. And remember, as always, if you have any challenges or issues in your relationship you need help with, if you want to give any suggestions or feedback for the show, or just want to join my email list, please email me at bill@pathways2livingwell.com. bill@pathways2livingwell.com. Probably the most devastating thing to hear from your spouse or partner is, "I don't love you anymore. I'm done. I'm leaving." So what do you do if that happens? Make sure you check out the next episode of the Men on the Path to Love podcast, the My Love is Leaving episode. And until then, keep your heart open and stay on the path to love.